Hello YouTube, it's Thomas Judge back once again with another episode of Valiant Till the Last, the ongoing series that I'm doing where every week I upload another video of another deluxe edition overview of a Valiant comic. And this is me reading the entire Valiant universe and my entire deluxe edition collection for the first time. And as promised last week, we are now back into physical deluxe editions, and as promised, we are now on the Bloodshot thread or family of Valiant Comics. So what we have here is Bloodshot Deluxe Edition 2. As you'll recall, I read this, I read Bloodshot Edition 1 quite a while ago, because that's kind of parallel to Harbinger Deluxe Edition 1. So it's been a while, but now I'm finally jumping at Bloodshot. I'm jumping at Bloodshot properly. Let's have a look at the hardcover. We've got a nice design here on the front, the standard kind of patterning there. On the side, we have Bloodshot with the various details and Deluxe Edition 2. It's a different writer. This is Christos Gage with Joshua Dysart, whereas last time was Dwayne, I forget the surname, but someone else basically. And then we have the usual back. And going on the inside, we've got the standard blurb on the front, creators on the rear. These are called French flaps, by the way. And then taking the dust jacket off and folding that and putting that away, what we have is Bloodshot, which is looking good. Just in terms of this, we've got the standard logo there like we had in the last edition. And then we also have the spine, and again it says number 2 there if you can see. It's a little bit dim here today, but I do make an effort to try to record these straight after I've read them so I can give you guys kind of a fresh and very immediate feeling of what I think about the comic. So, looking at this, let's just adjust the camera there. Looking at this, let's pop it open. So the end leaves are red, very obvious. We've got Bloodshot Book 2. So this is split into quite a few different arcs. To start with, we've got an arc called Hardcore, then Get Some, Mission Improbable, which is a crossover with Archer and Armstrong, and then Bloodshot versus Hardcore, and then just The Glitch and Other Tales, which are kind of sort of like one-off, bite-sized things. It's an issue 25, and as we mentioned before, those tend to have lots of anthology-style short vignette stories with different artists and so on. Now, a quick point before we go any further. What's worth keeping in mind is that the original Bloodshot Deluxe volume had issues 1 to 13. Here, what we'll see is that from issues 14 up to 23, it's actually a case of the issues no longer are called Bloodshot, but they're called Bloodshot and the Hardcore. That's hard as with a full stop. It's a acronym. Yeah, it's an acronym. For what stands as Harbinger something Response Division, something like that. So Bloodshot and the Hardcore is the title there of the individual issues. So if you're buying them as single issues or possibly even as trade paperbacks, you're not looking for Bloodshot, you're looking for something called Bloodshot and Hardcore. And like I say, that's from issue 14 of this series up to issue 23, and then issues 24 and 25 get renamed as just normal Bloodshot. Okay. So, jumping into it and having a look here, we can see the 5 issues that take part in the first arc, which is Hardcore. So that's Bloodshot issue 0, and then Bloodshot and the Hardcore issues 14, 15, 16, and 17. So there's issue 0 there. What did I think of this story? What did I think of the hardcover? It's good. Really, really good, really enjoyable. It's set straight after issue 13, so in my mind it was kind of psychologically resetting myself to go back into what was going on back in the events of Harbinger Wars. That's the original Harbinger Wars, so that was quite a few weeks ago. But yeah, it's a good read. It's fun. It progresses the story. It's well written. It's well characterized. The art is extremely consistent. I think originally, when I first heard of the title, Bloodshot and the Hardcore, I kind of thought to myself, is this some kind of 90s kind of storyline? I mean, it's a stupid name, you know, the Hardcore. Like, how cheesy is that? But actually, the exploration of the characters of the Hardcore and what they're doing and how they interact with Project Rising Spirit is really, really interesting and really, really good. That's the first arc. The second arc is just 3 issues. It's issues 18, 19, and then the Bloodshot and Hardcore issue 0, which is different to the Bloodshot issue 0. So looking at that, just jumping in there, again, all I can say here, really enjoyable, really consistent. I am loving the Valiant universe, and the character of Bloodshot here is done very well. Yeah, and I can't really criticise any of that at all. I'm just trying to find the next point where the storyline moves into the next arc, and here we have it. So this is worth noting. So Mission Improbable is a crossover with Archer and Armstrong. So what we have is Archer and Armstrong, an issue there, then we have Bloodshot there, I think issue 20, Archer and Armstrong there, and then Bloodshot there again. So in terms of the specific issues involved, it is Archer and Armstrong 18 and 19, Bloodshot 20 and 21. So, because it involves Archer and Armstrong, is this something that we now need to read Archer and Armstrong first before we understand this? I would say no. I don't really know much about Archer and Armstrong at all prior to reading this, but I knew enough, given that I'd read Faith, which is one of the earlier videos that I did of the Faith deluxe edition and the uncollected issues of Faith, which introduced Archer in that, and it introduced it sort of pretty benignly, but also well enough that I get an idea of who Archer is and who Armstrong is and so on. And then here, within the actual issues themselves, it gives a bit of a background as to sort of their characters and just some vague stuff. I mean, to be honest, all this stuff I didn't know about, and I guess this is going to be a bit of a spoiler for the Archer and Armstrong series, but it's so superficial and high level that I think it should be fine, to be honest. I don't feel like Archer and Armstrong's been spoiled for me at this point. I think I have some idea of the context of who they are and what their powers are and so on. Keep in mind that when I started reading my deluxe editions, I knew literally nothing about them at all. I just thought they were a comedy duo. Now I understand them a lot better. And actually I do quite like them quite a lot. Armstrong's quite funny, and Archer is very, very cool. So in terms of that, what I would say is that if you are going to read this, don't worry about the fact you haven't read Archer and Armstrong. Again, if you have a slightly relaxed perspective towards reading these comics and you're just willing to accept what they tell you and the characterization they give you in the issues, you will be fine, because you don't need to really know anything other than what is actually part of the natural exposition of the issues that they will discuss here. So it was interesting, it was good. It was a slight tonal change because it was a bit jokier, a bit more comedic, but it worked really well. And it worked really well with Bloodshot. This wasn't just shooing in a crossover for the sake of it. This was actually decent. And it leads in really critically and really importantly to the next issue. So you see here, literally, you have a scene, you have a guy looking in a mirror, and then the next issue continues that exact same moment. So it is critical to read that Archer and Armstrong crossover before you move on to issue 22 here. And then when you get into issue 22 and then you get into issue 23, what you've got is some sort of excellent action, really interesting story to do with Bloodshot. Really liked it, and that takes you to kind of like where we're left at the end of what's happening with Bloodshot. Issues 24 and 25 are frankly just kind of ancillary tales, the kind of peripheral tales that are either flashbacks to Bloodshot's past or just kind of parallel tales of other stories and other bits of action happening in the Bloodshot universe. They're good, well drawn, well written, enjoyable, and yeah, I mean, reading them here is as good a time as any to read them. I thought this was quite funny. If you've ever read sort of more classic comics, there's always that kind of is it Charles Atlas of like, hey, don't be a wimp. You're a 98-pound weakling. You should do bodybuilding, and then you can be tough and like fight off the bullies. They have this like crazy version of this in the Bloodshot universe, which is comedy gold, frankly. Well worth a read. Yeah, and then it's just sort of, like I say, little vignettes, little comedy things, bizarre kind of artwork that isn't really my cup of tea. This I thought was brilliant. It looked so plausible, I actually had to read it twice just to make sure it wasn't a legitimate advert from the 90s. But essentially what they're advertising is a video game that never existed called Bloodshot on a console that never existed. But it's just a really cool fake advert. And then it has this gallery page, but then the story continues, and there's also like another vignette here. Again, this is kind of a comedy thing, but it's pretty cool. And then we get into the actual gallery there. And this is the gallery and the extra features. Amazing artwork. So, That's a creaky spine right there. It wasn't that bad when I was reading it, Jesus. Yeah, so there we have it. It's really good, really recommended. I am really enjoying it. So another win from a Valiant hardcover, from a Valiant Deluxe Edition perspective. This one's also a little bit tricky to track down from what I gather. And so obviously, as usual, I'm quite fortunate that I got this in my collection. In terms of where we go next, what I kind of anticipated originally was reading Bloodshot Deluxe Edition Volume 2, and then reading Bloodshot Reborn, which is the next series involving Bloodshot that follows this. But then I remembered to have a quick look at my handy Valiant reading order guide. As you recall, this is something I got off the internet quite some time ago, and I've been using it as a really rough rule of thumb. So as you can see, I started with I didn't start with Harbinger. I started with Divinity, but then I went Harbinger, and I kind of went down the Harbinger tree, but then it all kind of went a bit weird around here because I went down a different route, and I'm quite happy with the route that I went down, and I would have showed you that in the last video. Well, now we're back up to Bloodshot, so again, I've read that, and today I just read this. So next I was going to read Bloodshot Reborn, but clearly, instead of reading Bloodshot Reborn, clearly the next thing that I should be reading is actually The Valiant, which clearly has Bloodshot in it as a main character, as you can see from the picture here, and is somehow set between Bloodshot Volume 2 and Bloodshot Reborn Volume 1. So next week we will be talking about The Valiant, which is a 4-issue miniseries, but has been collected in its own deluxe edition. Alright guys, hope that was useful. Hope the series continues to be useful, and hope you're reading along with me. So until next time, I'll catch you in the next video. Alright, thanks for watching everybody. As always, please like, comment, subscribe. As always, please follow me on Twitter at @IamThomasJudge, where I will post a daily review of whatever comics I've been reading. You can get an idea of what I'm up to on the channel. And as always, please support the channel by heading over to Amazon.com and checking out my prose novel about superheroes. It's a completely original piece of work. The first episode in it is called Arrivals, and the series as a whole is called No Gods or Kings. You can find an excerpt of that on my website, nogodsorkings.com. Until next time, everybody, stay classy.